All right, everybody, buckle up, because we're diving into something pretty wild today. The Consocio Protocol and Stakeholders Foundation.
Definitely wild. Lots to unpack here.
Right. And, we love to go deep, so this is right up our alley. We're talking about actually upgrading the systems that run the world. Like, how crazy is that?
It's ambitious, for sure.
Ambitious is an understatement.
Hmm.
But what has me hooked, what really jumped out from all these white papers and pitch decks and reports, all this stuff, is the optimism. It's like they looked at all the ways things could go wrong and said, nah, we're going to make it awesome instead.
You're picking up on the vibe, that's for sure. It's refreshing, honestly.
Absolutely. So imagine this, a world where instead of those lose-lose situations we always seem to find ourselves in, we could actually create win-win scenarios for everyone.
And not just like hoping for the best, but actual mechanisms designed to make it happen. That's where the Consocio Protocol comes in.
Okay, so let's break it down. Consocio Protocol, what's the deal? I keep seeing blockchain, AI, decentralized finance, all the buzzwords, but how do they actually work together to, solve anything?
It's all about changing the incentives. Imagine a global system where cooperation is rewarded, not just individual gain.
So instead of everyone fighting over scraps, we're working together to bake a bigger pie.
Exactly. A delicious, collaboratively made pie.
I like how you think. But seriously, how do you even begin to shift something as massive as the entire, global system? Where do you even start?
They've got this concept called Beneficent Currency, represented by something called a MEF token. It's designed to incentivize actions that benefit the entire community.
Hold on. So instead of money just being about, money, this beneficent currency actually encourages people to do good.
Precisely. It's a pretty radical concept when you think about it.
It really is.
The more we work together, the more valuable this currency becomes. And get this, to measure that cooperation, they've created something called the consociation coefficient. It's basically a way to quantify how cooperative a network is, looking at things like economic growth, social cohesion, environmental impact, the whole shebang.
So it's like a scorecard for the whole system, showing how well we're all working together. That's wild.
Yeah.
But how do you even begin to manage something so vast and complex? We're talking about global cooperation here. It's mind-boggling.
Right. And that's where the massive online collaborative network comes in, or MOCN for short. It's a platform where stakeholders from all walks of life can connect, share ideas, and collaborate on projects. Think of it like a digital town hall for tackling global issues.
A global digital town hall, that's a pretty wild image.
And get this, it's all facilitated and governed by something they call an AI e-board.
Wait, hold up. An AI is making decisions. I have to say that makes me a little nervous.
I hear you. It sounds sci-fi, but it's more about efficiency and impartiality.
So go on.
Well, this AI e-board is designed to be a neutral facilitator, analyzing data and proposing solutions that benefit everyone, not just a select few. Think of it like a super efficient, always-on city council, constantly working to improve the lives of its citizens.
Okay, so no shady backroom deals or wondering if someone rigged the system. That's reassuring.
Transparency and fairness are built in. It's pretty elegant when you think about it.
I like what I'm hearing so far. But what about tangible benefits? This all sounds amazing in theory, but what does it actually mean for people on the ground?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And they've got some projections. The Consocio Protocol projects a 30% increase in financial inclusion within just 3 years.
Wow, 30%, that's huge, especially for developing nations and communities that are often left behind.
Exactly. Millions of people who are currently excluded from traditional financial systems would have access to basic services like bank accounts, loans, and secure ways to send and receive money.
That would be life-changing for so many people. But what about those of us who are already plugged into the system? What's in it for, the average person?
The Consocio Protocol doesn't leave anyone behind. For small businesses and entrepreneurs, for example, the protocol anticipates a 25% reduction in transaction costs.
Now that's what I call a win-win. Lower costs for businesses mean more opportunities for everyone.
Precisely. And it goes beyond just financial gains. What's really remarkable is their target of a 40% improvement in overall quality of life metrics for stakeholders within the system.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. A world with better access to healthcare, education, essential resources, sign me up. But how do you even measure something as, subjective as quality of life?
It's a great question, and it's not just about one single metric. The Consocio Protocol takes a much more holistic view, looking at a whole bunch of factors.
So paint me a picture. What would this actually look like?
Well, imagine a world where everyone has access to clean water, sustainable energy, where communities are empowered to thrive, and everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential. That's the kind of future they're envisioning.
It sounds incredibly ambitious, but also incredibly hopeful. I'm starting to see why this deep dive is so fascinating.
We're just getting warmed up. There's so much more to unpack here.
All right, so before we went on this whole tangent, we were talking about a 40% boost in quality of life. But let's be real for a second. What does that even look like? How do they plan to make that happen?
It's not just some arbitrary number. They've actually got some really interesting ideas. One that caught my eye is this web sharing economy 3.0.
Rev sharing economy 3.0. Okay, now you're just messing with me. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, doesn't it? But think about it. Remember when you used to worry about, like, owning a car? Imagine a world where, thanks to the Consocio Protocol, access is so easy and affordable, you never even have to think about that again.
Okay, I'm listening.
Now expand that to pretty much everything. Resources, knowledge, technology, all seamlessly shared within this massive collaborative network.
So it's like taking the sharing economy we see today with things like, ride sharing and vacation rentals
Yeah.
and like turning it up to 11.
Exactly.
I can see the appeal, but that would require such a massive shift in mindset. We're so used to competing to wanting to own things.
Absolutely. And the Consocio Protocol folks, they get that. They see it as a gradual process, starting with education and incentives that highlight the benefits of collaboration. Imagine a whole generation growing up not just understanding, but actually experiencing the advantages of a system like this.
Okay, now I'm getting a little bit less skeptical and a lot more curious. It's like we're talking about rewiring our entire social operating system, you know what I mean?
Precisely. And this is where their approach to AGI gets really
Oh,
interesting.
here we go, AI again.
Yeah. Not just any AI, we're talking AGI, artificial general intelligence. They see it not as a threat, but as this powerful tool for good that can actually help manage this incredibly complex system and speed up our progress towards that vision of abundance.
We touched on AGI earlier, but it's such a mind-blowing concept.
Yeah.
How do they imagine AGI actually contributing to this universal society abundance they keep talking about?
Think about the challenges we face as a global community, like with climate change, poverty, disease. These aren't problems we don't know how to solve.
It's true, we have the knowledge.
They're problems that stem from system design, from a lack of coordination and cooperation. And that's where AGI comes in. They see it as a kind of conductor, orchestrating global efforts, analyzing data, optimizing resource allocation, even accelerating scientific breakthroughs. Imagine instead of working in silos, we're all working together, guided by this incredibly powerful intelligence.
So we're talking about upgrading the very fabric of civilization, using technology not just to solve our problems, but to evolve as a species. It's a lot to take in.
It's a big vision, no doubt.
It really is.
Yeah.
But AGI is such a powerful tool. It's hard not to think about the risks. What if it doesn't work out the way we hope?
It's a valid concern for sure. But what I find so interesting about the Consocio Protocol's approach is this real emphasis on harmonizing AGI with human values and societal goals right from the start.
Harmonizing AGI, that sounds like something you'd see on a motivational poster, not in a technical white paper. How do they plan to actually make that happen?
It all goes back to decentralization and transparency. They're proposing a multi-layered approach, starting with the decentralized governance structure for AGI itself. This means that instead of being controlled by a single entity, whether it's a government or a corporation, AGI would be governed by this distributed network of stakeholders.
So no Skynet situation. That's good.
More like a global cooperative, making sure everyone has a say in how this powerful technology is developed and used.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. But practically speaking, how do we make sure that AGI actually aligns with our values, with our best interest?
They've got a few key strategies. Firstly, transparency is paramount. They want to develop AGI in an open source and auditable way so everyone can see how it works, how it's learning, and importantly, identify potential biases or risks early on. Secondly, it's about establishing clear ethical guidelines and constraints from the very beginning, making sure that AGI development is guided by human values.
It's almost like we're talking about raising AGI like a child, instilling in it the values and principles we want to see reflected in the world.
It's an interesting analogy. And speaking of ensuring everyone benefits, that's where their concept of universal guaranteed income comes into play.
Wait, universal guaranteed income? Like everyone gets a paycheck, whether they work or not. That's a pretty radical idea.
It is.
Wouldn't that discourage people from working?
It's a common concern, but, studies have actually shown the opposite. When people have that safety net, they're more likely to take risks, start businesses, pursue education, engage in more meaningful work. They're not just surviving, they're thriving.
I can see how that could lead to some incredible innovation and social progress. But funding something like that on a global scale, that has to be a massive challenge.
Yeah.
Where would all the money come from?
It's a huge undertaking, no question. But they've got some ideas there, too. A multi-pronged approach, as they call it.
Hit me with it.
This universal guaranteed income, it would be funded through a combination of things: a portion of the revenue generated by the Consocio network itself, taxes on automated labor as AI and robots increasingly take over certain jobs, and even a global carbon tax to incentivize that transition to a more sustainable economy.
It's like they're not just creating a new system, they're redesigning the entire economic engine. This is all incredibly fascinating, but maybe we should take a pause here. When we come back, I really want to dive into the nitty-gritty. How does this all actually work in practice? Don't go anywhere, folks. All right, we're back and ready to get into the nitty-gritty. Last thing we were talking about was how this whole system actually works in real life. What's stopping someone from, gaming the system, Saying they did all this good stuff when they didn't?
It's all about trust, right? And that's where the blockchain part comes in.
Okay, so it's like a record-keeping system, but we have those already. What makes blockchain so special?
Blockchain takes it to a whole other level because it's decentralized. It's not controlled by any single entity, so it's incredibly secure and virtually impossible to tamper with.
Got it. So no more shady dealings or fudging the numbers. But let's talk about how this actually plays out in the real world. For the average person, how would the Consocio Protocol actually change things?
Okay, so imagine you're going to buy a cup of coffee.
Right. It's a daily ritual.
Exactly. Now imagine you could use your MC tokens, the ones you earned by contributing to the network, to support a local coffee shop that's also part of this system. You could actually track the journey of those beans from the farm to your cup, knowing that everyone along the way was treated fairly and paid a living wage.
It's like next-level conscious consumerism.
Yes.
Knowing that your purchases are actually making a difference. That's pretty cool.
Right. And now imagine that same principle applied to everything you buy, from your clothes to your tech. The Consocio Protocol allows you to really vote with your wallet, supporting businesses and initiatives that align with your values.
Okay, I have to admit, a world where I can feel good about every purchase I make, that's a pretty compelling vision. But let's zoom out a bit. We've talked about individual impact, but what about these huge global problems like climate change and poverty? How does the Consocio Protocol even begin to address something that big?
It's about changing the game completely. Imagine, instead of countries competing for resources, we're pooling our resources and knowledge to develop sustainable solutions. AGI could help us optimize energy grids, design carbon capture technologies, even develop drought-resistant crops.
It's like we're talking about a global shift from competition to cooperation, using technology not just to solve problems, but to actually change how we relate to each other and the planet.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technology itself, it's about designing systems that incentivize the outcomes we want to see. If we can create a system where cooperation is actually rewarded, where everyone has a stake in the success of the whole, then solving these global challenges becomes less about if and more about when.
So we're talking about upgrading our entire civilization,
Right.
Creating a world where everyone has a real opportunity to not just survive, but actually thrive.
Think about the message that would send to the rest of the universe, too. If we can get our act together here on Earth, we could become a beacon of hope, an example of what's possible when we choose collaboration over competition, compassion over greed.
Now you're getting philosophical, but I like it. As we wrap up our deep dive into the Consocio Protocol, what's the key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
The future isn't something that just happens to us, it's something we actively create. And the Consocio Protocol, with its ambitious vision and innovative approach, offers us a glimpse into what's possible. A future where technology empowers individuals, creates abundance, and helps us solve some of our biggest challenges. It's a future worth striving for.
Beautifully said. To all our listeners out there, we encourage you to check out the Consocio Protocol for yourselves. We'll include links to all the source material in the show notes. Do your own deep dive, ask questions, and imagine the possibilities. Because the future starts with each and every one of us. That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep imagining a better future.